Well, welcome in everybody to another edition of The Three Technique, a college football podcast at the intersection of the X's and O's and the Jimmies and the Joes. Preview season continues to roll along here on the channel. We've got Conference USA up tonight, kind of the Ellis Island of conferences in the FBS. We've got two newcomers to the conference in Delaware, Missouri State. We're excited to break them down. But Trey, if you're watching this on YouTube, or maybe you've interacted with the show to get to this podcast episode, there's a little bit of a different look to our branding, and we have completely reimagined the 3 Tech Pod, our logo, our color scheme, everything. And so we're proud to introduce Kicks the Football as our new mascot for 2025 and beyond. And if you are watching on the YouTube channel, you can see that nice new banner that you decorated and reimagined for us as well. I'm really excited to roll this out. I know you are as well.
Yeah, man. New year, new us, right? Is that how it goes with the preview season heating up? We really excited to update our branding, just kind of give it a fresh look. When we started this thing, we had no idea where this podcast was going to go. We're still growing, obviously, still have a lot of big visions going forward for what this can be. And yeah, I'm excited. This is kind of the next step in our growth process. So very fun, very cool. We'll always love the very quickly made chalkboard logo that I threw together in like 2022. But yeah, I'm really excited to have Kicks and the script and all the other fun stuff that are incorporated with this little redo.
Yeah, we've grown so much. We've reached so many new fan bases and corners of the country. And we really thought, you know what, let's find something that is unmistakably college football. When you look at the 3 Tech branding, we want you to feel like it's game day, and we feel like we've accomplished that. So very excited to hear your feedback. I know we released a teaser picture last week over on Twitter, really got the folks kind of hot and bothered to see the full reveal. So excited to introduce you to the new branding. And Trey, along with that, as we head into kind of the depths of preview season, we're also coming up with another way to interact with the Jimmies and the Joes and kind of give back to them through the conference power rankings that you've put together.
Yeah, we did this a little bit last year, but we are making it bigger and better this year. So if you're around last year, last July, we put out the call on social media. Hey, go fill out this survey. Tell us what you think the order of finish will be in each of the power conferences. And that's how we organized our preview shows. So we took your responses, we did the math, we ranked them all together, and figured out who the Jimmies and Joes you guys listening think will finish 1, 2, whatever, however big all these conferences are now, 16, 17, 18, depending on the conference. So we're doing it again. We're going to put the call out this week on social media. You can enter very easily. We'll have a link to fill out your rankings for all the 4 power conferences. You make sure you're following us on social media, follow the podcast on Apple or Spotify, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and just fill out that form, and you will get entered in to win a whole bunch of fun prizes. We've got home field gift cards. We've got maybe some t-shirt. We did some t-shirt giveaways last year too. We might be able to do that again. We've got a very special bonus prize that we're going to announce later this week on social media as well. So yet another reason to make sure you're following at 3 Tech Pod on all the socials. And we'll even give you a bonus entry if you leave us a review, because that definitely helps us out with the algorithms and all that good stuff. So we'll that's a lot to follow, but we'll put it all out on social media, have a nice clean graphic. Bottom line, you're just sharing your opinion. You're just sharing your opinion, telling us where the teams will finish. You can be as thoroughly researched as you want. You can be just based on vibes. We don't mind. Just fill them out, give us something to work with, and help us organize our preview shows. It's really helpful to us as well.
Yeah, and I think it's something that makes us unique as well. I mean, listen, so many people are doing previews, and whether they get super in the weeds or, like you said, kind of go more off of vibes and brands. One of the things that we felt like made our approach unique was, yes, we're releasing these in-depth breakdowns over on our Substack. We're doing these conference previews for the podcast and for YouTube. But the order in which we address them, especially the big conferences, let's let the Jimmies and the Joes pick the order of finish and power rank those conferences, and we'll break them down in that order. I think it's been a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun last year. Looking forward to doing it again this year as well. Trey, there's one other way that our listeners can win as well that you haven't mentioned, and that's by partnering with our new friends at Underdog Fantasy. Our partners at Underdog Fantasy are giving the Jimmies and the Joes a chance to get off the sidelines and into the game with up to $1,000 in bonus funds, plus a free pick when you sign up and use the code 3TechPod, all one word. Build your lineup by simply picking higher or lower on your favorite projections and win. It's really that simple. New players can get up to $1,000 in matching bonus funds and unlock that free pick by using our code. So what are you waiting for? Join us on Underdog Fantasy today. Let's party all season long. Underdog Fantasy promotes responsible gaming. Must be 18 plus or 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, and 21 plus in Arizona and Massachusetts, and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369. Almost got through that without stuttering. But yeah, we're really excited to partner with Underdog Fantasy. We've been talking about them for the last couple episodes. We'd love to have you join us. We're going to be creating a bunch of content around that once the football fantasy starts up, and pick higher or lower on projections. It really is that simple. So we're excited to play along with you. We're going to be sharing our best plays, I think, all season long. If you guys want to send your plays as well, we'd love to see those and interact with them over on social media.
And I may or may not put out a call this week to join me in a best ball league. I've been teasing it a little bit, but if you want to play best ball with me, I may or may not be putting out a call on our Twitter feed this week. So be on the lookout for that. Just the first 10 or however many we want to do to hop in can hop in with that.
Yeah, Best Ball Mania, and it's a large prize pool. Is that right?
15 million is the prize pool at the end of the year. Now, it's a massive tournament. You have to be pretty skilled and have a little bit of luck go your way. If you've ever played fantasy football, it's a nice mixture of skill and luck. But yeah, I mean, who doesn't want a shot at $15 million?
Who doesn't? Absolutely. All right. Well, we paid the bills. We've talked about our branding enough. Let's get into the reason why folks are here. Conference USA breakdown. And Trey, if folks listened or watched the Mountain West preview, if they've watched our other breakdowns as well, we've been coupling these teams as contenders, dark horses, and bowl hopefuls. Let's start at the top with the contenders. I have to imagine that the Liberty Flames are once again a favorite to make it to the conference championship game.
They are. And if you recall last year, if you listen to any Conference USA preview, it was basically just a foregone conclusion that Liberty was going to run away with this thing. I mean, they did in 2023. They had a whole bunch of talent coming back on that squad, and for good reason. It was a good reason that everybody just kind of sharpied them in to the Conference USA championship game. Obviously, Caden Salter, Quentin Cooley, nice dynamic duo in that backfield. But what everyone kind of overlooked was CJ Daniels transferring to LSU, and that led to just a complete dearth of big plays. You can read it in my CUSA preview that's going to come out here in just a little bit. But in 2023, they were tops in the country in big plays of 20 plus yards. They were fourth in the country of plays of 20 plus yards. That fell all the way to 87th in 2024 without that big time receiving threat. And it really just kind of was a cloud hanging over the whole team. They finished 8-4 with a bowl loss. They don't make the conference championship game, but they're always going to be one of the most talented teams in the conference. It's a fresh start for Jamie Chadwell and company. I think this is going to be good. They obviously don't have Caden Salter anymore. He transfers over to Colorado, but it's going to be a chance at a fresh start, I think. And Jamie Chadwell, last year was the worst offense he's ever had as a coach or an offensive coordinator at a high level. I think that he's probably going to come back up to the mean here. He has Ethan Vasco coming in from Coastal. Looks to be a really tailor-made prospect for that interesting, unique offense that Chadwell likes to run. Receiving core can't get worse than it was last year. I guess it could get worse, but it'd be really hard to not take a step forward with all the young guys they were playing last year. Really, for me, I'm just looking for, before going all back in on Liberty and just saying, yeah, they're going to run away with the conference, I hope they can find a defensive identity. That's kind of the thing that's been missing for me. Really, their defensive identity, it's looked like played out on the field is, hey, we're more talented than the other team. So
Mhm.
we're going to go just out talent the other offense and hopefully come up with enough big plays. But when the offense sputtered last year at times, the defense wasn't always there to pick up the slack, even with having an extra talent. So got to find that identity and not just rely on having more talent than the other teams, because that obviously didn't work out last year at times.
Yeah, they had a late portal entry in TJ Bush leaving for California. One of their top 2 edge rushers with CJ Basil. You read some of the previews that were put together before that move happened, and the synopsis was essentially like, yeah, whatever happens on the back end is going to happen, but Liberty's going to get to the quarterback. Well, now they just lost half of that dynamic duo, right? You mentioned Quentin Cooley's gone. They were 4th in the country in rushing a year ago. That is kind of the bread and butter of what Jamie Chadwell likes to be able to do. He likes to be able to wear you down, and Cooley was a battering ram. This year, it's kind of a question mark of who is going to pick up that slack. Julian Gray moves over from wide receiver, so he's a great athlete, but he's not the battering ram that Cooley was, right? Casey Kane, boy, that it's felt like he's been in college for forever. Started at Texas, moved over to UNLV. Now he comes over for his last season at Liberty and pairing with Ethan Vasco. So it does feel like Liberty is still the most talented team in the conference. I don't know that that's an extremely high bar, but as you mentioned, when things started to go sideways on the offensive side, suddenly it was like, okay, now what's the team's identity? The loss to Kennesaw State was shocking. That was the Owls' first FBS win in their history. They were what? Oh,
It
and
snapped a 19-game losing streak against
yeah,
FBS opponents.
brutal. Yeah, the loss to Sam Houston State at the very end of the year. They lost to Jacksonville State as well. And yeah, they looked up in December and it was like, hang on, we're not in the conference championship game. So unrealized expectations. I think they could turn that around here in year 3 for Chadwell. Conference USA is going to be interesting because I think on one hand, no one really jumps off the page at you. Is like last year we were talking about Liberty going 12-0 and whether or not they should be let into the playoff if they were undefeated in a Conference USA schedule. This year, I think it's maybe a little bit more muddled in that I don't necessarily know how many contenders there are, but there are chances that there could be pleasant surprises all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely. Our contender list, just to tease that, our conference contender list is only 2 deep right now. And that's mostly because the middle is so jumbled. I think we have a pretty good idea that at least 2 of these teams, Liberty and Western Kentucky, is going to be the next team that we talk about. They're probably going to be at the top of the conference. After that, there's a nice middle group of about 6 teams that, yeah, I could talk you into them being up in that contender tier, but I could also give you 3 or 4 reasons why they fall down and they're just a bowl hopeful. So the middle of this conference every single year is just so close to one another. And it comes down to coaching and winning your close games, because you look at a Sam Houston last year, they went 6-0 in close games. And the year before that, when they transitioned to FBS, they went like 0-8 in close games, or 1-8 or something like that. And it literally led from a 3-9 turnaround to a 10-3 season. So it's as simple as it might sound, Mitch. In this conference, when the talent is close to each other outside of Liberty, it comes down to how many of those close 1 possession to 10-ish, 10 to 14-ish point games are you winning?
Yeah. I don't know about you. That discrepancy, that struggle, that just hits different on a Wednesday night. So
It does. Yeah. I mean, it's perfect TV for a Wednesday night. Absolutely. You know the game's going to be close. You know something wacky is going to happen.
Yep.
It's Maction down south. It's perfect.
Much to my wife's chagrin, there is football on Wednesday night that is coming back for year 2. Let's talk about our friends in Bowling Green, Kentucky, shall we? Western Kentucky, the Hilltoppers, you've got them as that second team in your contenders tier. I think we're going to talk about a couple that certainly you could see make that jump and absolutely be contenders, but you've got Western Kentucky a cut above the rest. And I have a suspicion that it comes down to the offense once again for the Hilltoppers, right? Maverick McIver comes over from Abilene Christian. He put up a bazillion yards last year. He brings over his offensive coordinator as well. And if that sounds familiar, it's because that's exactly what happened when Bailey Zappi and Zach Kitley came from Houston Christian. And Zappy had a monstrous year for Western Kentucky, put them back on the map, continued to hone that fine tradition of just putting up all the yards and all the points. It feels like Western Kentucky could do that once again, albeit they do have to do it with a whole bunch of new weapons and personnel on offense, because, boy, the Hilltoppers were definitely victimized by the portal.
Yeah, they only bring back 2 starters total from both sides of the ball last year. So it's going to be a huge turnover, but Tyson Helton is not a stranger to this. Honestly, the reason that I have them in the contender category and not the dark horse category is because of Coach Helton. I mean, he seems like a guy that's just going to win 8 or 9 games a year, rinse and repeat. Doesn't matter how much turnover he's had. We both mentioned how much it is this year. He's not a stranger to that, though. Year over year, he's battling the portal. He's producing on offense, and it's getting the attention of Power 5 guys, and he's using that to attract the next crop of players, the next coordinator, whoever that might be in the portal. So honestly, until proven otherwise, I'm going to bet on Tyson Helton to win 8 or 9 games and be right there in the thick of it come November, December for the conference championship. So yeah, a lot of turnover this year. Defense, 16 transfers coming in from a 4-year school and 3 additional JUCO transfers. So it's a lot of new faces. Garrett and I talked about this with UNLV. As long as you can get those guys to be cohesive, to play together relatively quickly, you're going to be in good shape in this league, because you're going to be ahead of other teams that are trying to do the same thing. So I trust Tyson Helton. I trust that staff. And he hasn't missed really on an offensive coordinator yet in recent memory.
He has not. That has certainly been the identity for the Hilltoppers. Is just, okay, doesn't matter what we do on defense. We're gonna put up all the points. Now last year they did take a little bit of a step back, right? They weren't quite as efficient. They were just 92nd in scoring, but in their wins, you could see them bust off 49 points just like that, right? And teams like Middle Tennessee State fell victim to that. So if they can get back to that this year, certainly with an exciting quarterback, McIver put up well over 500 yards against Texas Tech, where he originally started his career in a game last year. I can't remember if
took him to double overtime, didn't he?
Yeah. And I can't remember if that was the season opener or if that was week 2.
I think it was right before. I think they were going to Wazoo the next week, and we were like, yes. Oh, well, that's not going to be good if they can't stop ACU. And John Mateer proved that right the next week.
Yeah. My big question for Western Kentucky is on the defensive side. Last year, they were abysmal in rush defense, 130th in the country. I'm curious to see how they try and improve that. They also have a number of transfers in the secondary. Jalen Emery comes over from Houston. You've got Braxton Myers, who, boy, we've heard that name bounce around a lot, was at Ole Miss for a little bit. Southern Miss, I believe he was also there for a hot second. So, getting his passport well marked. But yeah, it's just so much transition for this team, and could very easily see them being at the top of the contender. Also, if for whatever reason it doesn't click, all of a sudden you start to wonder, okay, well, what's the floor for this team? That's something that I think we'd have to figure out together.
I think that's a question for every single team in this conference, though. And again, I am, no shade at CUSA. I love watching CUSA football, but that's just the story of every single program in this league. They are fighting. You made the Ellis Island joke, right? From the Bill Connolly also mentioned that one. It's a bunch of schools that are looking to find footing at this level of football. And that's going to mean, if you have a bunch of stars, they might get picked up by a Power 5 school or a Power 4 school. They might get, you might lose a coordinator to a bigger school that was really like a Zach Kitley, right? You might lose him to a bigger school to get a different opportunity. So yeah, it's a bunch of schools that are really trying to find their footing, and that's going to lead to some really dynamic situations and some odd win total swings. I'll talk about a couple over-unders that have me just guessing, like, what does Vegas know that why it's that high here in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, that's just going to happen in this conference. But Tyson Helton has risen above that for most of his tenure and just kind of reliably won 7, 8, 9 games.
Yeah. Well, let's go to your dark horse contender now. And at least in the run sheet, you start with a team that has not been very consistent since this head coach got there. Sonny Cumbie has not really done anything of note at Louisiana Tech, but you look at the roster and it feels like maybe there's enough continuity and enough momentum in the right direction to get the Bulldogs close to a bowl game.
Yeah, there was improvement last year, right? And they had gone 3-9 in Cumbie's first couple of years, up to 5-8 last year. They did get to pinch hit in that Independence Bowl against Army when Marshall couldn't field a team. But I think there's a really solid chance. Then the over under really dictates it. I was kind of surprised to see them check in at 6.5.
I was
in
too.
the over under. Obviously, you can see on our graphic there if you're watching on YouTube that the under is the heavy favorite in the betting market right now. But I mean, I think that is a testament to the continuity. But yeah, last year, it was really interesting. You think a Sonny Cumbie led team would be an offensive juggernaut, but it was really the defense that led the way last year. They're going to have a new defensive coordinator. Luke Olson's coming over from Jack State. Gamecocks were really solid on defense last year. He runs a 3-3-5, so they're going to be switching from a 3-4 to a 3-3-5. So similar front schemes, right? But just like figuring out dropping back someone else to cover in the pass instead of having another linebacker up there. But the 3-4 last year was really, really productive and a nice improvement. Quietly, one of the bigger improvements in the entire country was La Tech's defense last year. Mm-hmm. They had a young trio. Evan Bullock, Amari Wiggins, and Jay Wilkerson were kind of their big three on offense last year. They're young. Amari Wiggins and Jay Wilkerson are now juniors. Evan Bullock, I think, is a redshirt sophomore.
Yeah, I believe that's right.
So third year in the program, but sophomore by eligibility. So these are young guys that really started to break through a little bit last year and give you hope that they could be breakout players that really lead this offense to the next level. Because really, that's surprisingly what's been holding La Tech back. You think, again, like I said, you think Sonny Cumbie would be leading an offensive juggernaut that's playing 50-40 type games, but that just hasn't been the case. La Tech, for whatever reason, under Cumbie has not been able to get that offense going. So if Cumbie can find that next gear on offense, show some improvement like the defense showed last year, I think you got a team that could sneak their way into a conference championship game as long as the defense is holding steady, getting under the new scheme. Like I said, their new defensive coordinator knows this league well, performed well in this league. So as long as the offense is getting up to snuff, this is a team that could find their way to a conference championship game if the cards fall their way.
Yeah, it's an interesting schedule, right? I mean, after LSU in week 2, they get New Mexico State, Southern Miss at home. They go to UTEP. They'll take on Kennesaw State as well. That's a very winnable game. Western Kentucky and Sam Houston both at home in back-to-back weeks. They go to Delaware. We're going to talk about the Blue Hens in just a minute. I think there are probably a wide array of opinions on the Blue Hens. They could be good. They could be a first-year program in the FBS.
Right. They could be Sam Houston from 2 years ago, or they could be Jack State from 2 years ago, right? Like that's the dichotomy that we saw.
Yeah, they get Liberty at home, and then they also get Missouri State, which they'll finish up on the road. So, yeah, there's certainly a path to a bowl game, and if they get hot, if Bullock turns out to be the quarterback that this program needs, which, I mean, they thought it was Hank Bachmeier. That didn't work out. The team has been extremely turnover prone in Cumbie's tenure at Louisiana Tech, but Bullock only turned it over 3 times through the air last year. So maybe he truly is the answer. I think you're right with the defense. Colby Fields, the middle linebacker, an LSU transfer from a couple of seasons ago, he's really kind of led that defense, and they have seen a really nice improvement. So I think a bowl game is absolutely a very real possibility for the folks in Ruston, which, for Cumbie, who came in with, the Mike Leach tree and former Texas Tech quarterback, like there were big aspirations that they had when they brought him in. To see those finally start to pay off would be good.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a school, I mean, that has had some nice success in the past, right? They're in a talent hotbed. that if they can just get out of their own way on the offensive side of the ball, I think that they could really be something in this conference. They have a lot going for them that the other schools in this league don't have when it comes to continuity at the highest level of football and just recruiting hotbeds, access to talent, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, let's go to another dark horse, which maybe some folks are expecting to be a contender, and that's the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. They won Conference USA a season ago. They really stepped up as Liberty kind of took a step back. Rich Rodriguez completed the rebuild there and stunned a lot of folks while doing it. But he's now on lap 2 at West Virginia. They've got Charles Kelly, who's a former defensive coordinator at Auburn, coming in to take over the program. There are questions about what the identity of this team is going to be in the new regime, and they have been absolutely gutted by the portal, by exhaustion to eligibility and graduation. This is going to be a entirely new Gamecocks roster from what we saw a season ago. And so for me, I look at the roster and I mean, there are some things to like. Cam Cook led TCU in rushing last year. He comes over to be the starting running back for the Gamecocks, right? A couple of returning starters on the defensive line for Jacksonville State, a team that for Conference USA made it really hard to run against. But then I weigh all of the turnover and the unknown with Charles Kelly, and I feel like I'm kind of stuck into trying to figure out which way I want to go with the Gamecocks, especially because the quarterback situation, Trey, I don't love. It's either Gavin Wimsatt from Rutgers and then last year Kentucky, or Cade Cunningham, who's was Memphis's backup last year behind Seth Hennigan, started his career at Marshall. He's on his 3rd stop in as many years. You got to have a quarterback to make me feel like you're a threat to contend for the conference title, and I just don't know if Jacksonville State has that.
Yeah, and if it was Gavin Wimsatt running the Rich Rod offense from last year, I think I'd have a lot more confidence that he would be a really solid option there. But for some reason, I'm really trying to stay positive in these previews this year. That's my new football season resolution. But
sure.
I just don't really understand why you'd look at something that was wildly successful. The offense that Rich Rod ran at Jacksonville State was wildly successful. Obviously got them to a conference championship last year. And you look at that and say, you know what? I think we should be more pass happy. I think we should infuse some more downfield passing in that. Like at some point, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And look, you might come back at the end of the year and say, yeah, they modernized that offense. They made it, I hate the word modernized because it was a modern spread offense. It was just running some option concepts out of it that were really hard to defend. We might have some more downfield passing. We might be able to really find an advantage in some of these games there, but they kind of had Conference USA on their heels last year. No one could stop that ground game. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. Obviously, Charles Kelly's a guy that's been around the game of football forever. He's been a defensive assistant largely for 30 years. He was at Jacksonville State back in the 90s for a nice stint, so he's familiar with the area. But in a time where you're going through so much transition, right? Like they're one of 5 teams that returned less than 30% of last year's production. They returned 19% of production on defense, last in FPS per Bill Connolly. So in a year with all that transition, you also want to change your offensive scheme and do something that you haven't really been successful doing at this level. It's given me a lot of red flags for this year, and I think it could be a rough transition. Long-term could be fine. I'm not saying that you should sell the long-term vision of this program because like La Tech, they have great access to talent where they are in Jacksonville, Alabama. So I am not selling them long-term necessarily, but I think this year could be a rough transition for them. And if you made me lay money on it, I'd probably take under 6.5.
Yeah, having to replace a couple of all-conference starters along the offensive line as well. The schedule is interesting. You get Liberty in week 2. That's at home. So there's certainly an advantage there. But then they also get some of the biggest unknowns for the conference, right? They get Delaware at home. They go on the road to UTEP, who UTEP's another team that just had a ton of turnover in the offseason. They get Kennesaw State at home. They go to FIU, who is widely projected to probably finish at or near the bottom of Conference USA. And then they'll finish with Western Kentucky as well. So, the home road splits there and some of the opponents that they get on their schedule, I think that also helps get towards the bowl game. But I'm with you. If they do truly go away from a scheme that gave them a top 20, I guess they finished third in rushing last year, a top
third
20
in rushing.
total
They're behind
offense.
me and gosh, I can't remember who was second, but one of the teams they were behind was a Service Academy.
Yeah. Top 20 scoring offense, top 20 total offense. So we'll see. Getting more balanced, at least having a better passing attack this year would certainly help. They were 109th, I think, in passing yards last year. So yeah, having a more balanced attack would be great. I would love to see Jacksonville State remain with the identity that, hey, we're going to run the football and you're not going to be able to stop it.
I mean, it's something they built the literal bedrock of the program as an FBS program on, and we'll see. Like that's kind of the approach I'm taking of Jacksonville State. It's obviously a program that can win. I think that their hire of Charles Kelly was one where they went for a guy that knew the program well and had been around the block at a lot of places. So there's a lot of experience there. So I don't think long-term you should be selling any long-term holds on that program, but this year just might be an interesting transition year.
Yeah. Another team that's very close to our hearts and very close to your backyard is the Sam Houston State Bearcats.
Well, they were, and now I'd have to drive like 2 hours with traffic to go to one of their home games, but continue.
That's true. Transition year in more ways than one for the Bearcats. Casey Keeler gone. He goes home to the Philadelphia area to rebuild Temple. And boy, I don't know if you're a sicko like us and you pay attention to all things college football year round, Temple's on a recruiting heater right now. They've got like 20 something commits, I think, in the last 2 weeks. I want to say maybe I'm a little bit off on those numbers, but I mean, kids are committing left and right to Keeler at Temple. So watch that space. I think the Owls are going to be fun over these next couple of years. But Sam Houston State goes 10-3 last year. And they bring in Phil Longo, former offensive coordinator at the program in the mid 2010s. I think 2014 to 2016.
Yep.
He comes back home. He is dead set on this being his final job. If you listen to,
I was about to mention the Carter Yates interview that you did.
Yes,
dude loves him some Sam Houston in Huntsville.
Yes, was like Carter said he was breaking team protocol at Wisconsin, like the no phone policy to be able to watch Sam Houston State games during the week. So he's very, very happy to go to Conroe and get the Bearcats ready to play. You mentioned they are undergoing a stadium renovation this year, so they're not going to be playing on campus. They're playing is it downtown Houston?
Right in the middle of downtown Houston. Yeah, they're playing at the stadium's changed names several times, but it's where the Houston Dynamo play. And I think Texas Southern might play there too.
Okay. So anyway, yeah, just a lot of upheaval around the program. Skylar Cassidy also leaves. He's now the defensive coordinator at North Texas. He took all the players with him. Between Temple and North Texas, like half the Bearcats roster is gone. So the over-under is 4.5 as it's set right now. The over, the slight betting favorite. So folks are believing in the Bearcats to maybe be on the cusp of getting to bowl eligibility. But when you look at the roster, what do you like? What are you maybe a little concerned about?
Yeah, 0 starters back on the defensive side of the ball with all of those transfers. So it's going to be very difficult to hit the ground running on the defensive side of the ball. But I'm cautiously optimistic about the offense, Mitch. I really think that Phil Longo obviously had some difficulties with his time at Wisconsin. Maybe it's because he was on his phone watching Sam Houston too much. But I think that he can get the guys to run his offense easier. I think he has better access to those guys in Huntsville, Texas than he did in Madison, Wisconsin. I am really interested to see if he can get those guys. They bring back their quarterback from last year, Hunter Watson. He was kind of in and out with injuries at times 3 of their starting offensive line. He had 2 really explosive receivers, Michael Phoenix and Quavez Humphreys.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot to work with. Got a couple nice transfers in the portal at running back. So last year, it was definitely a defensive-led team. They won a lot of close games on the back of the best defense in Conference USA from a scoring and yardage standpoint. But I think that this could be a team that flips the script this year and is maybe winning with the offense, because Phil Longo's scheme, I mean, call me crazy, but you watch Texas high school football. It seems tailor-made for some of those lower-rated guys coming out of the small East Texas towns that we see dominate at Jerry World every December. So
Sure.
I'm excited to see long-term, and I think he could really provide a spark to that offensive unit this year too.
Well, and there's big questions about whether or not a guy like Mayberry Medower, who is from the Woodlands, led the Woodlands High School to multiple playoff appearances down there. Fortunately, had his season and his career ended by my Duncanville Panthers en route to a state title. But a big arm.
Many other strong players have had that happen as well.
That's right. Add him to the list. Strong arm, physically imposing kid. I mean, think Trevor Lawrence, like just big, athletic, long blonde hair. He was handpicked by Phil Longo to come up to Wisconsin, and now he's transferred down to Sam Houston State to reunite with Longo. So Hunter Watson, I think, is a very good quarterback and was a good quarterback for Keeler's offense. If they need to go to the air, though, more, and if this is going to be more of a spread them out, throw it down the field, let our weapons beat your guys, I wonder if Medower takes over sooner rather than later. Watson, you mentioned, was in and out with injury, kind of in and out, turning the football over at times. And so I wonder what the ceiling with Watson at quarterback is versus a guy like Mayberry. I'm also just so curious to see what this defense is going to be. You mentioned they were so proud a season ago at what they were able to do, how effectively they were able to win those one-score games. And Skylar Cassidy was the architect of it all. And he had everybody kind of bought into playing for the guy next to you in the foxhole, and it showed last year. And now with all of that on the way out, I think they're going to have to win some of those games, 42 to 35 is probably how Sam Houston accumulates victories.
Yeah, they won several games like in the 13-10 range last year. And you're absolutely right. I think it's going to be way closer to that shootout formula than the defensive struggle, 3 yards in a cloud of dust offense it was at times last year.
Yeah. So listen, we're rooting for Sam Houston State. We might not make it to a game just because downtown Houston.
Yeah, I was so mad because Garrett mentioned a game last week on the Mountain West preview. I think can't remember what Mountain West team they're playing.
UNLV
early on. UNLV, yeah, and I was like, oh yeah, I could go. It's at Sam Houston. Let's go. It's Friday night, and nope, I'm not going to fight Houston traffic. I'm not going to battle that to get to downtown Houston.
Downtown Houston on August 29th, when it is going to be like 110 plus on the heat index with that humidity and that traffic. Good luck to all those involved.
Thoughts and prayers to the ones trying to sell and make a living selling Sam Houston season tickets this year as well, because your job's going to be really easy next year when the stadium's finished, and it looks the renderings look really nice. They're getting it up to the quality that it needs to be an FBS stadium. But you're going to earn your money this year if you get people to consistently commit to that drive down I-45.
That's right. It's the sell me this pin gambit, I think, a little bit this year. So team that is ineligible for the postseason, and I believe rounds out your dark horses category, that's the Delaware Blue Hens, which you texted me a couple of days ago while I was off on vacation, that you were very high on Delaware. Now, I did my own research, and I think I lean maybe more towards Missouri State as the better of the two newcomers. We'll see. We'll get there. But give me your case for Delaware, a historically very successful FCS program and a team that has a very, very similar color scheme to another team that is popular on this show.
Yeah, obviously, with both Delaware and Missouri State, we should just qualify everything with the transition to FBS is really hard. And it could be something that really works out well. See Jacksonville State 2 years ago. It could be something that teams really struggle with, right? See Sam Houston in their first year. See Kennesaw State last year. But we are starting to see more and more teams thrive in that transition if they've had a strong foundation. Look at James Madison just a couple years ago as well, how they took the FBS by storm when they came in. I think Delaware is a little bit closer to one of those teams that has the continuity that they need to really thrive in this transition. So Delaware, 9-2 last year, 6-2 in the used to be called the Colonial. I think now it's called the Coastal Athletic Association. But Ryan Carty did a really good job and has done a really good job. He won back-to-back 9 games in back-to-back seasons the last 2 years for the first time since Casey Keeler did it. Back when they won the national championship back in 2003, 2004. So it's really hard to quantify what that looks like and what 9 wins in the FCS looks like. But if you follow SP Plus, which if you listen to the show, you know I really like the SP Plus. I know not everyone does, but they would have been right about 100th in the FBS last year. That's good for about 6th in Conference USA, just going by last year's numbers. So I think this is a team that has a lot to work with. They have a ton of returning production, 20th overall and 4th on defense, according to Bill Connolly. 2 quarterback split time last year, but Zach Mecker really looks like he's going to be the guy to take the lead here. And their offensive line is FBS ready, Mitch. They have all 5 of their starters are going to be over 6'2". All of them are 295 pounds or greater. That's something that I really look at when I'm looking at a team making a jump to a different conference. Are they ready size-wise? And at least from an offensive line standpoint, it looks like those guys are ready. They're going to have to figure out some stuff on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the pass rush. Melkard Abu Giodi, I think is how you pronounce his name. Big pickup by Bill Belichick in North Carolina in the portal from Delaware last year. But they have 17 players coming back that log double-digit tackles. So a ton of continuity, a ton of experience playing together, and I think a really good coach in Ryan Carty who has gotten the most out of that program on their way out of the FCS.
Yeah, it seems like maybe there's some whispers that if Carty can make this transition well to the FBS, that he's maybe a hot ticket item on the coaching carousel. You hate to see that happen to these small programs, but it's the reality. It also highlights just how great of a job that Carty's doing at Delaware. And I do think that there's a really good chance that both Delaware and, in my opinion, Missouri State make a little bit of a statement in year one. Obviously ineligible for the postseason, but I think there's a good chance that, you look up and they've proven themselves better than what we saw like Kennesaw State do last year, right? A team that just kind of coming into the season had no hope of really competing on a weekly basis. I feel like both the Blue Hens and the Bears are going to be set up for more success. And I'm very curious to see as Conference USA loses a couple of members as we go into next year and the year beyond that, what's the identity of Delaware and Missouri State in Conference USA? Do they end up staying there? Are they able to run the conference? A lot of these questions I think I'm left with for Conference USA, but I think they're both positioned to, like I said, come up and compete fairly quickly. So that's the end of your dark horses category. We can move through the bowl hopefuls fairly quickly, I think.
Let's start with Missouri State. I want to hear your takes on Missouri State because I was not as impressed with Missouri State. Not that I think they can make some noise, and I honestly think when you look at where they were, the Missouri Valley, is it really that less difficult? Is the Conference USA really going to be that much more difficult than what they were facing in the Missouri Valley? Because you're facing North Dakota State, South Dakota State,
right?
North Dakota, Northern Iowa, all these just stalwarts of that level are all concentrated in the Missouri Valley. So that's what I think they have going for them. But from a program standpoint, not really a program that had a lot of consistent success. Some recent to be sure, but not a ton of consistent success like maybe a Delaware.
Yeah, I think it. So the key advantages that I look for a team making this transition. Quarterback continuity, they've got that. Jacob Clark has been in college for 7 years. The offensive line, you mentioned that with Delaware. Some big boys along the Bears offensive line. Their starters right now are listed at 6'7", 345, 6'2", 300, 6'3", 300, 6'3", 315. This is some beefy boys in the trenches. They've got to replace their running game production from last season. Shamari Lawrence is the projected starter this year, but he's kind of a big boy himself. 6 foot, 210 pounds, senior for the Bears. They're going to have to replace a couple of the wide receivers as well. The top 2 pass catchers from last year, both gone. So it's Jamari Robinson, who's supposed to be kind of the guy this year. Defensively, can't give you a ton. It's a lot of new faces. They have a couple of returning starters, I should say, on the back end. But the front 7 is going to be a lot of new starters, and it's going to be my biggest question, right? I mean, that's going to be my biggest question about most of these Conference USA teams is just, hey, especially when you're replacing consistency on defense, how quickly are you able to get back up to speed? So, I'm not saying that they're going to go 9-3 or anything like that, but just when I look at the launching off point, like I said with Delaware, there's a couple of the boxes that are checked for me. And so I think if Missouri State can come up off of some recent success and, like you said, success and ability to compete with the cream of the crop in the FCS and the Dakotas, why not Ryan Beard and the Missouri State Bears?
Yeah, Jacob Clark might be one of the best quarterbacks in this league already, honestly. Yeah. When you look at, if you just start listing the quarterbacks in this league and try to rank them by who's the most proven at the college level, he's going to be up there. So they have that going for them. I think if they are a team that's winning games, I think kind of like we were talking about with Sam Houston, I think they're going to be a team that's winning more games of the shootout variety than the defensive struggle variety. But
probably,
yeah, I'm a little bit more optimistic after looking into them. Just pedigree of the program, like that seems to be something that matters as well, and that's maybe why I lean Delaware just a little bit more than Missouri State for year one.
It's all right. When we get to the end of the year and we have the post-mortem, I'm very excited to dive into Delaware, Missouri State, and like I said, project forward to what they can do in a Conference USA that is losing UTEP, who I guess we can dive into next. UTEP's getting ready to leave for the Mountain West. This is their last year in a conference that is ripe for the plucking. And UTEP has gone through, I don't know how many rebuilds. Maybe they've just been a perpetual state of rebuild. But Scotty Walden's in his second year. He's got some returners on the offensive side. They lost kind of their big playmakers on defense. I think of Mo Westmoreland, who's gone. He's now at Tulane, which if you were listening to our previews last year, we did more of the G5 and storyline format. But one of the big storylines that I had for UTEP was I was so excited for Mo Westmoreland coming off the edge, and he produced. He had, I think, 8 sacks for the Miners last year. Immediately goes to Tulane. I think he's going to be a big factor in New Orleans. The question and the big storyline at UTEP is last year they were kind of the UTEP governors, right? Walden brought over so many players from Austin Peay. This year, it seems like the big question is, can the 5-star crack the starting lineup? They've got Malachi Nelson that comes in from Boise State by way of USC. But Trey, when you read the spring breakdowns and you read the practice notes, Skylar Locklear looked like the better quarterback, and Malachi Nelson is by no means penciled into the starting rotation for the second year in a row. We were kind of surprised when Maddox Madsen was the starter coming out of fall camp, and Malachi Nelson was going to ride the bench. It's a pattern that seems to be repeating itself.
I mean, if my new football year resolution is to be positive, so I'll frame this again as positively as I can. I think we need to have an investigation on the recruiting services if Malachi Nelson can't win the job at UTEP. Do we not? Because what was this guy doing being a 5-star if he cannot win the job at UTEP or Boise State, let alone USC? So yeah, I'm really interested to see how that plays out. I'm cautiously optimistic about UTEP this year. And I know we said that a couple of years ago after they were on the bowl, after they made a bowl game, and it kind of fell apart. But yeah, I think that they change both coordinators. So sometimes that's a red flag, but I think that was a good move. And they're bringing in a lot of interesting pieces on the defensive side of the ball to try to fix that side of the ball. So I'm interested. Their over-unders at 5.5. So that's one of those teams I was talking about where the over-under seems a little higher than I would expect just with my general vibe check of the program. So maybe it's something Vegas knows that we don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic about UTEP this year, though. I think they could win a few games and maybe get to a bowl game on the way out.
Well, they've got to beat the FCS team on their schedule this year.
That would be a nice step up from last year.
They were not able to do that last season. They get UT Martin this year after Utah State. So I don't know.
UT Martin beat Kennesaw State last year, I believe, too. So they're no stranger to knocking off CUSA opponents.
The Skyhawks, right? Isn't that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Utah State, probably a loss. We'll see. UT Martin at Texas. But then Louisiana Monroe comes to town, and it feels like if you could start 2-2 out there in the Sun Bowl, that would be a massive step in the right direction for a Miners football program that wants to believe they can take this step, for a fan base that really wants to fill up the Sun Bowl and have something to cheer for. You start the year 500, maybe you start to believe that you can beat a Louisiana Tech at home, that you could pull a Kennesaw State and upset Liberty at home. They get some of these big opponents, Jacksonville State, even New Mexico State, in the hated rivalry game late.
Who they beat? They won that game in Las Cruces last year.
Who they beat last year. So I think just based off of a slight improvement on the offensive side and getting games at home, I can convince myself that UTEP can go to a bowl game. Our friend Stats of War, Parker over on Twitter, laid out a path that UTEP has to nine wins in the regular season. He put forth a 9-3 regular season, and then hey, maybe you were winning a bowl game to go 10-3. I'm not quite that bullish on UTEP just because, again, I need to see kind of a proof of concept, right? Both on both sides of the ball. But yeah, I'll absolutely throw my hat into the ring that UTEP can make a bowl game, and I'm going to root for them every single week.
They did end the season really well last year. I think they won 3 out of their last 5 CUSA games, beat FIU at home, beat Kennesaw State at home, and like we said, won the Battle of I-10. So leaving last season on a high note, their losses in that time period were really close to Louisiana Tech and Middle Tennessee. So could see a big jump. You could see a big jump from year 1 to year 2 of a coaching staff, and having the new coordinators in place, I think might be key too.
Yeah. All right. We got a couple teams left. Where do you want to go here as we run through the rest of the bowl hopefuls?
I want to talk about FIU because they made a really interesting hire in Willie Simmons. This is a guy that has, FIU, I think, calling their program a disaster might be putting it too kindly. Just over the course of their history, they're a team that's right there in the middle of Miami and has just never been able to find consistent success, regardless of what league they've been in. No. Willie Simmons is kind of the perfect hire for a school like that. He took over at Prairie View and won 9 games 3 years in a row for the first time in 50 years. That was something that had not been done at that program in 50 years. Then he goes to Florida A&M fresh off of, I think, 7 losing seasons in a row, turns them into the best HBCU team in the country, and actually making the FCS playoffs, like made their conference change the policy on what the postseason is for their teams, because FAMU was really good and good enough that they thought to compete in the playoffs. So Willie Simmons is a guy who has never had a losing season as a head coach. Very, very interesting hire. Really interested to see what he can do at a place where you can get a lot of talent if you're just willing to go mine and find some uncut gems. Maybe Kyron Jenkins is back at quarterback. They brought 9 Power 4 transfers in this year. So that over-under sitting there at 5.5, it's interesting. I think they have pulling up their schedule, doing live radio here, but they have potentially the pieces to make some noise this year in his first year. And yeah, they play Florida Atlantic at home. They get Delaware, they get Kennesaw State, Liberty's at home. Their road games aren't too difficult at Missouri State, at Middle Tennessee. So this is a team that could make some noise. Their last 3 are really difficult: Liberty, Jacksonville State, and at Sam.
Yeah.
But I think it's a team that could push for a bowl game, and it's not really squinting too much to see the path. If they can just get cohesiveness on one side of the football and have one thing that they do well. And it seems like Willie Simmons has a really good history of doing that.
Yeah, development's going to be huge for the Panthers. They took a big step in the right direction with the branding last year, right? And
Dale,
partnering with Mr. Worldwide, and kind of staking their reputation to, we are Miami, and so let's party it up with Pitbull. If we're Miami, he's Miami. Let's dance here. The transfers from Miami are interesting to me, right? AJ Allen comes over. He'll be the starting running back. They get an offensive lineman from the U as well. They are so ripe and primed to be one of those destination G5 programs. Who doesn't want to go to Miami? We went through there on our honeymoon. It's beautiful. We drove by the stadium. Great place to play. But they've had no identity when it comes to succeeding and playing football in Miami. If they can show that by coming to FIU, at the very least, you come there for 2 seasons, you develop, you win some football games, and you move on. You go to another program. You go to the U. You go up the East Coast. That would be good enough, I think, for the Panthers. It's a massive institution. They've got a ton going on there. If you can win 6-7 games every single year, and Simmons seems like he's primed to do that, then I think that's a success for FIU. You can compete for the conference championship every couple of years. I would be thrilled to see the Panthers raise their floor to that level and raise that ceiling to, hey, yeah, every 5 or 6 years, we're going to win a Conference USA championship. That's what I envisioned for that program. I was very outspoken that I did not like the Mike McIntyre hire, and I did not like what he was doing to that program. It just felt like he was wasting talent and resources. So this year, now you get a guy who is known for building programs and developing players
and doing it quickly.
It doesn't matter what your star ranking is. He's going to win. I'm very excited to see what FIU is like this year.
Me too. Yeah, one of my circle that teams to circle back on this year. Let's talk Middle Tennessee next. We have Derek Mason, year 2, 3-9 in his first year. Obviously, that was a really controversial firing that took place at the end of 2023, right? Rick Stockstill had been there forever and had been pretty consistently successful, but Derek Mason comes in 3-9. Nicholas Vadiato, thank you. He's been a starter for 2 full seasons, so got a lot of experience under his belt. They only brought in 13 transfers this year, so Derek Mason is kind of rolling with his guys in that program, the second fewest in the conference behind only Delaware. And yeah, I mean, they have continuity, I think, on both coordinators. So getting that scheme instilled, trying to find a way to turn it around from 3-9. But man, it was a rough year 1. It was all the wins were by single digits. The conference losses were by an average of 20.5 points. I'm struggling to find the piece to point to for optimism here, if I'm being honest, Mitch.
I think it's Vadiato coming back. And I think probably a lot of veterans of college football 25 are smiling because that kid transferred every single dynasty file that I saw. After year 1, he was out of Middle Tennessee State and moving on somewhere else. So I'm sure that name rings a bell for a lot of people. I think apples to apples, he's probably the best pure passer in the conference. And so I think that gives the Blue Raiders a head up over their competition. I think the continuity on defense is big. There's really nowhere to go but up. That defense was so bad last season. They ranked, 115th and worse in a lot of key categories. And they just didn't force any turnovers. The offense turned the ball over like it was going out of style. The defense couldn't keep up. And so you result in a turnover margin of -9. They've got to flip that. They've got to get that back more to net neutral. So yeah, I think they're a program that I'm kind of in wait and see mode. I think they will improve by how much? I don't know. The fact that the over under is a game and a half of above what their record was last year. It tells you they're going to be in the same ballpark. Now, going through their schedule once again, I think they could get wins at Austin or versus Austin P, at Nevada, maybe. We'll
That's
see.
a game I circled on both Nevada's preview and Middle Tennessee State's preview, because I think it's a big benchmark game. It's two teams that aren't projected to the top, near the top of either of their respective conferences, but a big opportunity for one of them to build some momentum before conference play starts.
Yeah, they get Marshall at home, which Marshall is...
Who knows what Marshall's going to be?
Who knows? Yeah, Ben and I talked about that in our Sunbelt preview. There's nothing you can know. It's a completely new program up there for the Thundering Herd. At Kennesaw State, you get both of the newcomers, Missouri State and Delaware. Could be a blessing, could be a curse. And then you get FIU and Sam at home, and you finish on the road against New Mexico State. So again, just like with all of these teams, you could talk yourself into 6 wins. I think that's going to be the fascinating part about this conference. Is it feels like just about anybody can make a bowl game and get to 6-6. And so which of those teams find ways to win in the margins? So for the Blue Raiders, I think it's winning the turnover battle. And that would be a huge step forward in year 2 of Derek Mason.
Well, we got 2 teams left. Where do you want to go close it out here?
Let's go. Owls, we're going to do you last. We're going to talk my New Mexico State Aggies. I've been rebuilding them in college football 25. Fun place to play in Las Cruces. They need an identity, man. Tony Sanchez in year 2, they had all that momentum with Diego Pavia and Jerry Kill, and we hashed that out last year. I just don't know what New Mexico State football is right now in year 2 of Tony Sanchez. I don't know. They've got a couple of pieces back on defense, which should be good, but I don't know where I look at on this roster and go, that's the X factor. That's what I expect them to ride to 6-7 wins.
Yeah, it's the linebackers, right? That are probably what the most optimistic position group on the whole roster. Baby.
Yep.
Yeah, but overall in the defense, they lost 8 starters from a unit that just really wasn't good last year. Parker Awad, is it Awad or
Awad? I think
Awad. Yeah. So he's in a battle with Logan Fife coming down from Montana. So could be a potential new quarterback. I think that's an opportunity to potentially upgrade with Fife. So yeah, I mean, just trying to recapture some magic, right?
Yep.
We're looking at a program that was notoriously almost impossible to win at until Jerry Kill got there a couple years ago. And then he captured some magic with Diego Pavia and really was able to find success there. But it's an uphill battle for Tony Sanchez or whoever would be following in Kill's footsteps.
And I do think Logan Fife, I don't know if it was official or if he was just kind of crowned by the message boards, but I believe he's won the quarterback job coming out of spring. So it should be the Montana transfer coming down. He started 8 games. I think he was in and out of the lineup with injury last year for the Grizz. Did take them to the FCS playoffs, which is always an accomplishment. Obviously the Bobcats made it a little bit farther, but that's okay. Montana, a great program, and they kind of go back and forth with Montana State up there. So yeah, I think Fife, he's got, I think the top 2 returning wide receivers for the Aggies come back, and then they get a transfer tight end in from Central Michigan as well. So they should have some decent pass catchers. The offensive line is all new. BJ Tolo is the only returner, I believe, starting from a year ago. He's at right guard. So there's just a lot that they've got to figure out along the offensive line, and they need to run the ball as well. Dijon Staley comes down from Utah, I believe. And I want to say they had another running back transfer who's escaping me. David, is it David Yost? David Yost, is that right? Their offensive coordinator? Yeah, David Yost. A lot of experience running big, up-tempo, high-producing offenses. So I think there are pieces in place, but kind of like most of these teams, to be quite honest, I just want to see it happen and get some skins on the wall before I'm fully ready to invest. I'll tell you, though, New Mexico State's a team that I'm rooting for just because it is a tough place to win. There aren't really any big expectations. We saw New Mexico have some success last year, right? With Devin Dampier and Bronco Mendenhall. They're both gone. So can the pendulum swing back towards the Aggies and maybe give New Mexico State an upper leg in the state? That'll be fun. That's certainly something I'm watching for.
Yeah, always interesting to follow that area of football, right? UTEP, New Mexico.
Yeah.
Lots of interesting, just trying to find a creative way to win at a really hard place to win. Let's close it out with Kennesaw State, Mitch, a team that went 2-10 in their initial jaunt through Conference USA last year. They even lost to UT Martin on homecoming, but they did somehow beat Liberty last year, much to the chagrin of Flames fans that were clinging to playoff hopes amid a lot of close games. But they made a really interesting decision at the end of last year, really much maligned decision, firing Brian Bohannon, the only coach in that program's entire history. They bring in Jerry Mack this year, who's a former coach at NC Central. He's kind of been around the block and seen every level of our sport, quite honestly. Head coach at NC Central, offensive coordinator at Rice, running back coach at Tennessee, running back coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars over the last decade or so. They brought in Dexter Williams from Indiana, who recall came in and filled in nicely when there were some injuries in that lineup last year. And has a lot of potential for another offense that's going to be switching from an option attack to more of an up-tempo spread. And I don't know about you. Again, it's like the second or third time I've referenced Texas high school football on this Conference USA podcast. But have you ever gotten to watch a team that is in year one of a transition from a wing tee or an option to an up-tempo spread?
Not that drastic. I've seen some transitions like that, but I don't know that I've seen anything that drastic. I will say real quick before you keep going, Dexter Williams from Georgia Southern last year started his career at Indiana.
Thank you.
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
Thank you for that cut correction. Those folks. Yep.
Yeah, appreciate that. I've seen it quite often down here, especially in the mid 2010s when the spread offenses were starting to become all the rage. Those old wing tee habits die hard, man. Yeah. And even if you're bringing in a lot of new players, it's a rough transition typically. But hey, I think the defense is really what you're looking at for offense, for optimism for Kennesaw State. Bring back 13 of 17 players that logged 200 or more snaps. They could be one of the best units in the conference, Mitch, just by experience alone. And honestly, like we've said a lot of times, if you can just find a way to do one thing right, if you have something that you can fall back on in this league, you're going to be ahead of the game from some other programs, and you're going to have a way to win some of those close games that you need to win to climb up the conference standings. So for Kennesaw State this year, it's probably going to be that defense and trying to find a way to just ugly up some games and rely on that defense to bring it home.
Yeah, they've got 4 starters back in their secondary. They've got 3 of the 4 linebacking starters are back. And then they've got a number of guys with a ton of experience along that defensive line as well. I agree. I think if you're hanging a hat on the Owls of Kennesaw State, it's going to be a marked defensive improvement and just finding enough points to try and win games, right? They're starting quarterback from last year, Davis Bryson, moves to wide receiver, so you're going to see the ball in his hands a lot more often. It was kind of a revolving door, I think, to put it mildly, at quarterback last year for Kennesaw State. So they get Dexter Williams in from Georgia Southern. Originally, as you mentioned, started out at Indiana, so you know the potential is there. Now, if he can solidify that starting quarterback spot and work with some of the options out wide, they could be a fun team this year. We knew they were going to take their lumps last year, right? We knew that. The program had prepared to take lumps in year one, and that's why it was so strange when Bohannon got fired, because if we were judging him based off performance, then he was set up to fail. We knew that Kennesaw State was going to lose the vast majority of their games last year, and I think that's why it was so unpopular. He's built this program literally from nothing, taken them to the highest level of college football, and then you punt him in favor of, of Mr. Outside Hire. It just felt very, very strange. And I think that was why it was cool to see, Bohannon see these guys for homecoming and, get to shake the hands of all his players there as the students did their walk in front of the home faithful. So anyway, yeah, just kind of a weird wrinkle to last year. But Kennesaw State, Delaware, and Missouri State, obviously the three newcomers over the last 2 years, there's room for them to grow, man. There is room for them to put their stamp and their mark on Conference USA. And I'm certainly going to be an interested viewer on Wednesday nights.
Well, hey, the Sam Houston blueprint is what they want to follow, right? Because Sam Houston had a rough transition year, followed that up with 10 wins. So anything, it sounds cliche. We've been saying it over and over again, but literally anything can happen in this league. The margins are so thin. The talent level outside of just a couple teams is so close to one another that it just comes down to who has the ball bounced the right way, who takes advantage of their opportunities in close games, takes care of the football, and kind of creates their own luck sometimes in these close games with good coaching decisions and timely plays. And that can make all the difference between going 2-10, like Kennesaw State did last year, or being in contention for the conference championship.
I love it. All right, buddy. Over an hour on Conference USA. How about that? Preview season keeps rolling along here. Keeps rolling along here on the Three Technique. Hey, we did our research. We do not shortchange any program. That's
right.
Sure.
Yeah. I love that. I love that we're giving these smaller G5 leagues a whole show this year. We've kind of combined them into multiple shows and done just quicker looks at them in the years past. But man, we're going all out this year, and it's been so fun to find these storylines and comb through the depths of message boards and different corners of the internet that I have not explored for college football content in the past. That sounds seedy. I'm not meaning it to be seedy. Just looking at websites I never would have thought to find information on, because it's difficult to find information on some of these teams sometimes.
Yeah, I tell you what, the Kennesaw State black market, man, it's a wild place. No, I agree. College Football 25 was such a big hit last year, and their whole mantra was that every team is someone's favorite team. And I think we took that approach this year with our previews. Our written previews over on our Substack are just as in-depth and thorough. So if you love reading previews, we've got I think almost all of the G5 up right now. Your Conference USA written previews come out actually next week. My MAC previews are coming out kind of as we speak. So if you're listening to this, the first one is likely about to come out or has come out on our Substack. And then we get into the power conferences, and the level of coverage is not going to change because we've gone all out on the G5 teams as well. And we've been able to interact with those fans and kind of gather a lot of those fan bases into our community, which has been really cool and has fueled a lot of our growth. So I'm just pumped about it. I love these. We've got a bunch of new guests coming up on the show as well. We're going to be bringing on guests to preview the MAC. We've got 2 guests previewing the American with me. So anyway, stay tuned for many more previews and many more written articles on our Substack as well. Of course, if you're interested in winning all the free goodies that we're giving out, whether it be home field or a couple of the other bonus things that I think will definitely get you excited, stay tuned. Follow our Twitter account. You'll see Trey put out that link to fill out our power conference surveys. We'd love your input there, and you'll obviously be entered in at least once, maybe multiple times if you review the show to win all of those prizes as well. Well, for Trey Reeves, I'm Mitch Mason. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Conference USA is down. The MAC is up next. Until next time, so long, everybody.